The time has come to experience terror at Collinwood. Welcome to the show. I am so ecstatic because my guests today are James Storm and Valerie Pronio Storm. I am thrilled and honored that they are here, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. But before we get to the show, I want to let you know about a couple of things. For the audio listeners of the podcast, I want to encourage you to also watch the video version of this episode over on YouTube. Why? Because it is packed, I tell you, with well over 100 photographs. I think it's like 150 photographs, actually, the vast majority of which were provided by the wonderful Valerie Pronio Storm. So, photos from James and Valerie's life, their wedding, hanging out with Dark Shadows cast members. If you ever wondered what the Dark Shadows cast members, the Collins family, if you will, what they do if they hang out, well, they do hang out, and you can find out what that's all about if you look at these pictures, which are magnificent photos from their travels all over the world that are available on their website as beautiful prints. Lots of great pictures. Thank you to Valerie for providing, I'd say, maybe 85% to 90% of the pictures you're going to see in this episode if you watch the video version of this episode, which is available on YouTube. If you don't watch the video version, that's okay, because the audio version features a wonderful discussion with these two creative, artistic individuals. Also, Dark Shadows Remembrance Weekend is coming up, and there's an addition. Donna Wandry will be participating in the event via Zoom. Marie Wallace is too. That was previously announced, but Donna Wandry has now been added, and she's going to be participating through Zoom at the Dark Shadows Remembrance Weekend. That's going to be taking place July 5th and July 6th of 2024. And with that said, let's get to the show. There's nowhere to run, there's no place to hide. This podcast is fun, but there are spoilers inside. Welcome to Terror at Collinwood. 'Tis I, Danielle, aka Penny Dreadful, and I am extremely excited. I cannot contain my excitement, for I am joined by the husband and wife super team of James Storm and Valerie Pronio Storm. James Storm appeared as Gerard Styles on Dark Shadows and is beloved by Dark Shadows fans worldwide for portraying the malevolent character in the series. He's also known as Jim Storm. He's a prolific actor, photographer, and musician. He appeared in many roles on stage and in film and television, including War and Peace and Man and Superman on Broadway. Films such as Blue Sunshine, The Monster Project, and Falcon Song. TV movies such as Trilogy of Terror, The Invasion of Carol Enders, Curse of the Black Widow, and Scream of the Wolf. He appeared in many TV shows where he's played roles such as Bill Spencer in The Bold and the Beautiful, Roman in Planet of the Apes, and Dr. Oliver George in Saint Elsewhere. As I said, he played Gerard Styles and his parallel time counterpart in Dark Shadows, and also appeared as a version of Gerard in Night of Dark Shadows. He also played Bob Cratchit in the Dark Shadows Christmas Carol event, which was a lot of fun. On his 8th birthday, Jim's father gave him a darkroom kit, which changed his life forever, instilling a passion and talent for photography that lives on to this very day. Valerie Pronio Storm is a retired physician, former director of medical student education, and Humanism in Medicine award recipient at Harvard Medical School. Valerie was also a photojournalist documenting the clinical journey of her Harvard and MIT students in becoming competent and compassionate doctors. As a member of the Board of Governors of the Massachusetts American College of Physicians, Valerie was lauded for her photography contributions. She also happens to be a longtime fan of Dark Shadows. So welcome both of you to the show. I am so happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very, very thorough.
Very generous.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Look, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg, what I just read there. You're both so artistic and creative. I love it. So we look at some memories here of the past, I want to talk a little bit about the future. You're both going to be at the Dark Shadows Remembrance event coming up, which is a life celebration for the late great Lara Parker and centenary for Jonathan Frid. So, what are your thoughts leading into that? Because I know that's coming up soon.
Well, I think it's a celebration of many people, both the actors and behind the scenes and the writers and stuff like that. Put them all together, and that's what, for me, that's what the celebration is about. Certainly Lara, of course, but Johnny Carlin, Chris Pennick, I mean, the list goes on. Unfortunately, it goes on for a little time, but it's really commendable that Jim has stepped up to do this, and we're very thankful to him for putting this together. And we really look forward to seeing people and just kind of hanging out.
Also, too, I think that the Friday night would be more of a memorial celebration, and I think that Saturday would be more like a festival for lots of people who have never been to one. So that'll be pretty exciting. But as Jim said, we've lost so many people, and yes, we love Laura. We love Laura, and we're so happy to be able to celebrate her life with everyone, and also to our dear friend Chris Pennick, and there's Mitch Ryan, and it goes on and on, and Bob Cobert, and also people that were so special to Dark Shadows, such as Marcy Robbins, who did the Dark Shadows Festival. So we're very happy to be there and meet fans and thank people who joined Jim's fan club and who supported us in the photography. So it's
excuse me, Dan Curtis.
And Dan Curtis.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
It's Jim Pearson and Mary Leary too. They kind of teamed up to put this together. So I'm really excited to go out there and see everyone.
Look forward to you in person.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, for sure. I definitely look forward to meeting you both in person as well. So you mentioned your photography. And I have these two photos up on the wall. I'm going to put them up on the screen for the YouTube version. For audio listeners, definitely check out the YouTube version of this because I'm going to be putting up some images. But the Jim Storm Photography website, which I will link to in the show notes, is fantastic. So you both are passionate photographers. So can you talk a little bit about how you got into photography and what are some of your favorite experiences as photographers?
Go ahead.
Oh, sure. For me, my father was a photographer, a professional photographer, so he's always taking photographs, professional when we were young and stuff like that. But mine really started when my best friend's mom gave me a 110 camera, and I went on different trips I was actually in Thespians, the drama club, and taking tons of photographs from there. And then as I went on, like you noted about the medical school education stuff, I really enjoyed taking photographs of the students in their journey to becoming doctors.
Yeah.
It was really heartwarming time for me. And also, as you noted, on the Governor's Council, we'd go up to Washington, D.C., and I would photograph, senators and representatives with a group. And I one time actually got Newt Gingrich and Patrick Kennedy to get in a photograph together. And they said, Valerie, this will never happen again.
Right, yeah.
I just love it. And so I was really happy that Jim has such a passion too. I actually learned so much from him. It's unbelievable. I've photoshopped all kinds of stuff.
You've both traveled all over. I mean, it's just remarkable. Like the Leonardo da Vinci Bridge is in France, and then the pumpkins on the wall in England. So Jim took the one of the bridge, and Valerie took the one of the pumpkins. And Jim, you grew up although you were born in Illinois, right? So, but how did you get to England?
Yeah, I had an opportunity when I was very young. My parents just decided that it's time to, kind of spread their wing. They were very progressive. And this was back in the 50s when things were, you kind of held everything down. And my dad and mom did the opposite. And, and within 6 weeks, they'd sold a house of everything, and we were on a steamer heading for England. And we lived there for a couple of years in a place, like I mentioned earlier, called Hampshire, and in an area called the New Forest. And it's a land grant given by William the Conqueror. It's 100,000 square miles, acres. And the decree to this day is all animals are allowed to roam free. So for a kid, 9, 10 years old, it was it was insane. It was so much fun. I mean, of course, I had a horse, so I'd ride off through the forest, and it's just an incredible childhood.
Were you always a creative kid?
Yeah, I was. I was my parents were literary people, and my brother and sister were very good students, and I, on the other hand, was not. And it was, so I got education by doing it, and good or bad, and also it just a lot of pictorial things started striking to. I'd see a picture of something and want to know more about it, and I would, dig through the library, or I'd have my grandmother tell me what this was about, and it was. But that's, I think, how photography really came into my life at that early age, because it said so much to me, and that you can tell a story with the photograph, and it was a real education, and my dad got me started on it, and I've been, clicking ever since. I started about when I was at probably 9 or 10.
Wow.
And it's also how we kind of built a relationship. We had one of the very first things that we did was that we actually jumped in a car, so to speak, and drove up to Standing Rock in the winter in North Dakota and volunteered during the pipeline protests. And we also did a lot of photography, and were able to see, like, we were on a bridge and American soldiers were throwing tear gas at us.
Wow.
Yeah, and anyway, so we got to record a lot of things and meet a lot of wonderful people that have become friends since then. But that's how it all started. Was going on the road together. Our relationship really, we knew that we wanted to be together.
Yeah. It's just a cool shared experience to do that together and create together. With photography.
Yeah, we love the high point of traveling is, of course, is throwing everything in the car or the truck and taking off and doing back roads. We never get on the freeway, never get on major highways, because we like going through the little towns that are dying, that are ghost towns, that are struggling, and you learn so much about this country and what's going on. And it's fascinating. It's just absolutely an education in itself, though. When you run into mayors of towns that have 1,200 people, I mean, it's just
sure, yeah.
It's quite an experience, and we haven't done it in a while, and I really miss being out and having that freedom. So
yeah. So we actually we go on a shoestring, so to speak. We sleep in our car. We love sleeping in our car. It's that big. We have everything all fixed up.
Yeah.
But another thing we did too is we had put on a photography show called Ain't My First Rodeo, which was at Beyond Broke, which a lot of the DS cast came to. A lot of the fans, thank you, came to. And it was great. We spent all summer. We went to 25 or 30 different rodeos.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We met in El Paso, and it was like 115 degrees. It was fun.
Yeah. It was before that too, and I had done about 3 or 4 years, and I had gone to Los Angeles City College because I wanted to understand what photography was, and how to load the camera, and how to, I'd already known, but I really never, was educated by it. So I signed up, and one of my last assignments was, I decided what I'd like to do is I'd like to get on a Greyhound bus, and I'd like to go up to Billings, Montana, and photograph people on the bus and the surrounding areas. And then when I get to Billings, the people I was staying with said, you've got to come to the rodeo, and which I wanted to do anyway. And so I got backstage at the rodeo behind the arena and photographed the activities there, and then got back on the Greyhound and came back to LA and put it all together for a final exam. And it was very successful, and it was really, I did the Greyhound thing 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm. I've seen some of those photos on Facebook. I know Valerie's very active on social media and posting some of the images, and she does deals, like the Dark Shadows deal, where I got this really cool Gerard style signed photo. I was very excited about that. And I know John Logan, the acclaimed screenwriter and playwright, who is also a huge fan of Dark Shadows and of yours. And he picked up one of your prints, and he was very excited to meet both of you, and was just raving about how wonderful it was to meet you both.
We love John Logan.
Yeah.
We love John Logan. He's the kindest, sweetest, most wonderful, but he's so bright and intelligent. He's written all things that, like he was on your show, which we really enjoyed your interview with John.
Both of you. Both of you.
Thank you.
That was just extraordinary. In my life, I don't even remember, a few incidents, but I mean, what you both would share, I was thinking, my God, how did they, well, you obviously, I mean, that's a love of something that's just unbelievable. And his, both of you are so eloquent and clear, and just the fact that you really loved what was going on in that show. You both were just extraordinary.
Thank you.
About coming on, because I don't have half the quarter.
Oh no, you know what? I know that the actors on the show, I mean, you were working, you were every day running these lines and then recording the shows really quickly, and people, the actors from the show don't remember specific plot points and things like that, which I know some fans at the festivals and stuff would ask plot related questions. So I will not do that. I will spare you.
I'll just tell you, I remember, I'll leave it up to marijuana.
That must have been such a great period of time, though, to be in New York and being on Dark Shadows, which was like the cool show on TV. I mean, the kids hanging out outside the studio, waiting to meet you guys, and just and then the theater scene in New York too at that time. I mean, what was that like? Like, did you have any memories of that period of time?
It was, I have a lot of memories of that time, both theatrically and television and all of that. I was very, very lucky when I first came to New York, but I just fell in love with the place, and it was, everything was going on. I mean, theater was happening, dance was happening, music was happening, certainly music, painting, art. I mean, it was just a renaissance of activity that was just exploding. And the only thing I can remember is that all of this intensity was happening. The one area that was kind of second place was this, the film industry, because London had opened up the schools and started really, investigating films and everything. But it was still, it still was loaded with so much knowledge and interest and excitement. It was incredible. And just one story about the kids standing outside the studio. I had an old Chevy pickup truck that I'd park out in front, and I'd get in it. And I taught Kate Jackson how to drive it. But anyway, I got in the truck one day and I drove back down to my place. I lived in the Village, and I parked it and got up. And all of a sudden, 4 kids came out of the back of the truck, of the bed of the truck, and they covered themselves in the tarp.
That's amazing.
And they jumped out, and they wanted to know where I lived. And I was like both pleased and pissed. So
Yeah.
I can't show you where I live, but thank you for now. I don't know how you're going to get home, and I don't care. Goodbye. It was quite something. It was they were you know, the people that follow this show, it's just extraordinary.
Yeah.
Just extraordinary.
Yeah. And Valerie was one of those kids who ran home from school to watch Dark Shadows. How did you get into Dark Shadows?
Yep.
Yeah, I was one of those kids who ran home from school, so to speak, with my saxophone and all of my books. I was, it's so surreal for me to now to think that I'm married to Jim. Although, full disclosure, by the time Jim got on the show, I was actually in high school already. I was a twirler, and I didn't see him then. Mm-hmm. Which I think, I'm not sure if that would be creepy or not creepy, yeah. So I started out there. I really love it. My sister, I want to give a shout out to my sister, Kay Pronio, who actually watches the show every single night. She's very excited to see everyone and to meet Roger Davis. Yeah, it's really surreal.
So you and your sister Kay both watched the show.
In fact, a few years ago, around the time of 9/11, with all the tragedy and everything that was going on, a friend of mine at the hospital where I worked started videotaping the shows for me and it was back when it was VHS. Giving it to me to watch. It was kind of like a comic relief with all the the stress and the tragedy, and I watched it with my youngest son.
Oh, that's cool that you introduced your son to the show as well. To
Dark Shadows Festival.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay.
Back when it was in Brooklyn.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I went to two of them. Jim, you weren't at the ones I went to, but those were in New York that I went to. But it was really cool to attend those festivals, and it was just such a fun celebration of Dark Shadows. But Gerard Stiles, that character, I've talked to so many people on this podcast, and frequently, we'll talk about some of the different characters. And then when Gerard comes, like, he's scary. He scared me. Like, with that, when you were the ghost, with that, the master of the sneer, you had that like curled lip thing you would do. That was just really sinister and malevolent.
Good. That's very well done. Yeah.
How did you get, you were going to Germany, right? At that, you were going to leave to go to Germany
I almost blew a really good deal by missing Dark Shadows. I would have been later regretted it. But as it turns out, I had a call and I had sublet my apartment. And a friend of mine's brother moved in, and I moved to this other place because I was going to Cologne in Germany to play on the street with a couple of musicians that I had known. And my agent was like, "What are you talking? Oh my God!" So anyway, he called, said, "You can't go. Linda Otto wants to see you." And of course, I knew Linda from Broadway, and so I went in. And she said, "Hey, give me Dan Curtis. There's this Dark Shadows thing." I said, "Oh, okay, all right." And so I walked in, and Dan was sitting there twirling his hair. His on the desk, and he's just kind of looking at you, and he's got this Cheshire cat smile, and he said, "Okay, well, let's see what you have here." So I did it, and he kind of just said, "Well, that's really, really nice. That's great." So I left, and I came back to my apartment. The phone rang. My agent said, "You can't go to Cologne. They want you to do this role in Dark Shadows." So I had to go through the song and dance getting my apartment back. But anyway, it was it was just I went into it with okay. Here's my first day of Dark Shadows. Okay, this is a classic. So I'm wondering what is this thing? What vampires? All this period stuff and So they said, "Why don't you come up and see the day show, the today's show, and see what we're." So I said, "Sure." So I go into this little room with a television, and it said, "Whoa," and then there's a picture of Collinwood, And if I'm lying, I'm dying. It goes to blackout, opens up, and it's some scene in Collinwood, and the bell housing of the lens goes right across the screen with ABC written on it.
Oh,
I said, I think I should go to Cologne. And that was my introduction to Dark Shadows. I never laughed so hard in my life. But anyway, it was just a wonderful group of people. I mean,
Yeah.
really wonderful, and just all theatricals, and just it was insane, just fun beyond belief.
I think that's part of what makes Dark Shadows really special is that most of the cast came from the theater, and you could sense the camaraderie too with that cast, which continues to this very day.
Yeah, I just called David the other day.
Well, I think the camaraderie is that the cast have actually remained like family all these years. We've seen them so much.
Yeah, it's a strange thing, because in this business, as you well know, you do a job with somebody and it's always, oh yeah, we'll get together, blah, 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 blah. You never see or hear from them again.
Yeah.
And the thing about this one is that, we pick up right where we left off. I mean, it's an incredible relationship with these people.
Yeah.
And it's a joy to see them all the time. They always have interesting things going on.
Yeah.
And I remember what I was going to say. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm at the Globe Theater and I'm watching The Tempest, and character, it's going on. John Boyd's playing Ariel, and it's an entertaining time. And this guy that plays Caliban I'm just watching this guy ooze his way across the stage, and just incredible delivery. It was just an amazing performance. I looked at it and I said, oh, okay, his name is Jonathan Frid, right? And then when I get to Dark Shadows, I realized that, and so I told him about that incident, and he was very complimentary and very flattered that, but he was absolutely extraordinary in that role.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He is Barnabas. I mean, he walks away with it. He's just incredible, and a super nice man, just a lovely guy.
When you were on the show, you had a lot of scenes with Jonathan, but also with people like Chris Pennock and John Carlin and Laura Parker. Like, you became friends with them, and especially Chris Pennock. Weren't you very close friends with him?
Yeah. We actually, our relationship we'd run into each other in New York after Dark Shadows and kind of, sit and have coffee and talk. He was a guy that had conversation running all over the place. He could talk about anything. He was wonderful. And when I came out to LA, he was living out here, and I asked him to work with me for audition for the Actors Studio. And so he did, and and that started our relationship. And we would see each other, and sometimes a year would go by, or maybe 2 years or something. And then later in our careers, he was living up in Idlewild, and he suggested we come up and stay and look at it and buy something, and which Valerie did.
Yeah.
But yeah, we became very, very close, very good, and I missed him terribly. It's as you go by the village there and you start saying, well, this is where he was the last, it's just a real heartache.
Yeah.
And he was a wonderful actor.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Brilliant. Yeah. Just the kind of energy that he gave off was like nothing else.
I would do plays in LA, and he was always there. He went to every single show I ever did just to see what was going on, because it was a very avant-garde type of theater group, and he was very curious about it, and he knew the right. I mean, he was just a lust for life.
Yeah,
such a nice, cuddly teddy bear kind of person. We had, like Jim just alluded to, we ended up buying a house in Idlewild and they were our neighbors. They're right around the corner from us. We did everything together. We go meet for coffee. They come over here. We celebrate birthdays. We'd have them for Halloween when they had the Halloween thing on. They were with us.
I just noticed. I saw that when you were together there. Yeah.
You got for the pizza.
Yeah.
And Christmases we spent together, New Year's Eve. I mean, when later on when Chris needed to go to the hospital in LA, Jim drove him to LA. We were so close, and so we were really involved during the time when he was ill. I was on the phone at the time with his doctors trying to help, things. But we really miss him. We do. Yeah, we just saw her a couple of days ago. We do spend a lot of time with her and stuff like that. And but we miss him. He was larger than life.
He performed your wedding ceremony. Yeah. He did the wedding ceremony for the two of you, which I'd love to, if you're okay talking about it. How did you both meet, and can you talk a little bit about your wedding? Because I know your wedding, a lot of the Dark Shadows folks went to your wedding too. Can you talk a little bit about that?
You went. We often wonder whether or not we should make up a story or tell the real one. But I'll tell you the real one. Which is interesting. You talked about Dark Shadows before. I started going to festivals in 2005. I never saw Jim. Like I was doing the hit and miss thing like you were doing. And then in 2012, they had the Johnny Depp Dark Shadows premiere. Yeah. And it was at the Vista Theater in Hollywood. And I flew in from Boston. I was in Texas for something, and I flew from Texas to the thing. And so were you at that per chance?
I wasn't. No.
So at the end of it, they had the autograph line, and I had to catch a plane because I had to go to a meeting in New Orleans. So I looked up and I saw Jim, and he was at the head of the head table, like this long line. You're supposed to start way over there, right? And he was way over here, and I had to catch a plane. So I thought, So I jumped the line and I went right where he was. I said, "Oh my God, this guy is so cute. How did I ever miss him?" Anyway, so I saw him. I put my arms around him, and a friend of mine, Joe Blasey, took a photograph. So I have a photograph within the first 10 seconds of us meeting, of us together. Yeah, it's really, really cool. And then I had to leave, and so I never saw him again for 2 years. And at that time, I hung up with him at the bar, and I know he doesn't remember, and he made a night, but he asked me to marry him, and then I couldn't. I was already married. And then 2 years later, I was no longer married, and I was walking up, and Chris Pennant goes, "Valerie, where have you been? Jim's been looking for you." And I was like, and I walked up and I saw him, and my heart just went like, and I just like, oh my God. And I just felt myself fall in love with him. It was just, I never had that feeling before. And so what's your made up story? This is the real one.
Aww.
We're not going further.
But after that, we were
one of the really wonderful, memorable times. I was staying up in Pine Ridge with the family, and I was living in a tent. And every night, I guess for several months, every night we would talk on the phone, and it was really getting to know each other. There wasn't any, it was a really solid way of knowing that you were going to go further with this relationship.
Yeah.
So it works out really well.
Yeah. Of course, I was in Boston, and then we came back. He was in LA, so he'd be calling me like there was a 3-hour time difference.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we talked for hours, and it was a really good way to get to know someone.
That's really cool. And your wedding, I've seen some of the pictures that you had posted online. Like I mentioned, Chris Pennock performed your wedding ceremony, which is so cool.
Oh my gosh,
he did a beautiful chant for the ceremony. It was really fun. It was a nice day. People really were having a wonderful time. The setting was gorgeous, and it was over when it was over, and then we went off and went up the coast to California to have our honeymoon or first night, and that was it.
Yeah.
And David Selby read a poem too at your wedding. Yeah.
Well, we were really fortunate because like Jim said, it was a very lovely venue. It was the end of the Seventh Ray in Topanga Canyon. But it's very small, so you know, everyone that we invited came, which was absolutely amazing.
50
And,
people.
you know, it was not 75.
It starts it right there. Yeah, it was beautiful.
So, and it was amazing because during this whole process, Laura Parker would call me up on the phone because she was coming to the wedding with her husband, Jim. And she'd say, "Okay, Valerie, what are you going to wear?" And I went, and she goes, "I have a dress for you." And so it's like, she sends me this photo and this is dress. And I didn't realize at the time it was actually the dress that she wore at her wedding.
Oh,
But it was,
wow.
it was long sleeves and it was all the way up the neck. And Jim goes, "You wear that, there'll be no wedding." So I had a beautiful 50s dress that I wore, but she goes, "What? My daughter is a florist. We can do the flowers for you."
Mhm.
And so, you know, she said, you know, she did all the flowers. It was amazing.
That's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she was there, and also other people that Jim keeps really close with Dark Shadows cast members because they're all like family. But he also stays in close contact with his TV wife from Bold and Beautiful, Lauren Cosley.
And you went to visit her in Italy, didn't you?
Yes.
Yes, we did promotions together. We did a lot of them. We did promotions all over Italy, and yeah.
And then we went to our daughter's wedding a couple years ago in Sicily. It was really nice.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's wonderful. I've never been to Italy. I have friends in Italy. I should go visit one of these days.
It's worth it.
It's beautiful. Bella Italiana.
Yeah. My family's from Portugal, so my parents are from the Azores.
Have you gone to Portugal? Have you been?
I have been to the Azores, to San Miguel, the Azorean Islands, which are beautiful. Have you been?
No, I haven't. I've been to Spain and up the border of Portugal, but I never went across.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to.
It's beautiful. I haven't been to the mainland, but I have been to the Azorean Islands, which are gorgeous, kind of volcanic islands like Hawaii, black sand beaches. Really, really beautiful. I think you'd get some great photos there for sure.
I'd love to go there.
Yeah.
It'd be beautiful.
Yeah. Jumping back to Dark Shadows real quick. So when you first started, you were this ghost. You played a ghost, and then we go back to the past, and we find out how Gerard became that way, and the character is not what you expect because you start as a silent, malevolent figure that's tormenting young David Hennessy's character, and then we're in the past, and he's a very charming sort of scoundrel. Scoundrel is the word I was looking for. He's a scoundrel. Yeah, and it was really fun to watch you play that. And you affected this accent that was, when I first heard your real speaking voice, I was like, oh, he doesn't sound anything like that, because you've had sort of almost like a mid-Atlantic, almost British. Was that from your childhood in England that you kind of?
Actually, I years before that, I was with a company called APA, and there was a woman who was taught at Carnegie Tech, and she was a foremost authority on diction and voice and how to break things down. So I studied with her for those 2 years, and so I was just throwing in a lot of that kind of flavor. It was something to do.
It worked for Dark Shadows for sure.
Yeah.
Big time. Really cool. And then then you played another version of Gerard. They did a parallel time storyline. So there's, of course, Dark Shadows did parallel universes. So you were Gerard again, and alive in that universe as well, who was kind of a psychic version of Gerard. It was really cool. And then you left the show, I think it was in February, was Gerard's last appearance on Dark Shadows. The show ended in April. I remember reading an interview with you where you said, and I don't know if you remember this, but you said that you were fitted for a costume for yet another character for the show before it got canceled. Do you remember if it was like a modern clothing that they fitted you with, or was it in the past, or do you remember anything about that?
19th century costume.
Okay.
It was, I was at Varney's in the dressing room being measured for this jacket and pants, and I was going to wear these boots, and I mean, it was they said there's a phone call. Barney's. I got the call at Barney's, and I walked in. The agent said, "Don't bother with the wardrobe because they've canceled the show."
Wow.
And I was really kind of, well, I was very disappointed. It was because they were going to continue. I mean, Quentin killed me. And then we were going to come back and, be really at each other, I guess. And, I don't know where the story would have gone, but it was a really sad disappointment because I really enjoyed it. And I went off and did the movie, and then I went to Morocco.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And in the movie, you were a very different version of Gerard, this really nasty handyman character.
I think John Logan said he wanted to, get that film and, buy the rights to it and then rewrite it and do all that kind of stuff. I thought that would really be wonderful because, assuming that I would like to be in it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I love that kind of character stuff. And I really enjoyed it. I like being really kind of, handicapped.
Yeah, I would love to see you come back if there is a new Dark Shadows, which has been talked about now for a little while, that there's a sequel series that's in the works. Would you be up for playing a part in that, either whether it's Gerard or some other character?
People that are still with us, absolutely. It would be just, yeah, it would be really wonderful, and we were hoping that we keep hearing flashes periodically of this might happen, but I don't think the families really, or Warner Brothers, I guess, or somebody, but I think it would be just a real, it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Because you came back and did some of those big Finnish audio plays, audio dramas that they did, and you played Gerard in some of them, but you also did another Dr. Robert Harper, I think, in Return to Collinwood.
Yeah,
right. So, but yeah, there's still interest. They're still trying to get that going. So
I hope so. I hope somebody. I mean, it's. I know that John was disappointed. He really wanted to do something with it. So,
and he would be fantastic.
And he would be. If he writes it. So in tune with what the show is.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Well, when he was on the podcast, he talked about that. Well, that's why he ended up doing Penny Dreadful, because at that time he was trying to get to do Dark Shadows and it was not available at that time. So he ended up doing the Penny Dreadful series instead, which shares a lot of common themes with Dark Shadows, big time.
Yeah. The lead actress is just insane. She's
Eva Green, who then played Angelique in the Johnny Depp the comedy Dark Shadows. Yeah. Another question I had here is that about your music interest, Jim, because you've put out an album and you've performed at the festivals. Are you still performing as a musician, or?
No, I never was a musician for showtime. I never performed. I played as a kid in coffee houses back in the folk period, and that's what got me started playing I had to, as a child, I had to learn the piano, and I didn't have any interest in that or the clarinet, but the guitar, I really, and everybody was playing bongo drums or guitars, so I bought a guitar, and I would go to these coffee houses and watch people play, and folk music was a big thing, and the Kingston Trio was massively big at that time. So I got into playing it, and my brother became a musician. Well, he always was, and he had a group that played at the Troubadour. They played all over the country, actually, and then Andy Williams hired them a group that replaced the Christie Minstrels. They called it Good Times. Mike was a guitar player on that, and very proficient, really a fine musician. So I would hang out with them, and I would go to these parties where all these old blues guys were. I remember sitting on the floor and listening to Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee play, and Sleepy John Estes and people like that. And it's just so it was a very fulfilling time. And I played the guitar, and I would sit, and my the guy that was running the theater that I was working in San Diego, he said, you have two choices. You could be a guitar player and singer, or you can be an actor, but you can't do both of them right now because you're starting out. So you make a decision on what you want to do. And I chose, to really focus on the acting, and the guitar was always secondary, and I'd play it when I just felt like, I played it a lot. But then, years later, I was in a gas station with Ed Lambesi, and he was doing some shows, and he said, Jim, you got to do something besides sell, your photographs and stuff. That there's, and I was yodeling. It was pumping gas. I was just, and, do you sing? And I said, yeah. But I have a little tape that they did for me. The guy that I was learning the guitar with, a bluegrass player. And he said, well, send it to me. And I said, okay, all right. So I sent it to him, and he called me and said, this is just insane. This is really, really, he was very complimentary. And he said, my God. So he was the one that really stepped up and produced the album. And I had no intentions of ever, I just, was playing. That's all I was doing. And so we were at some place that Ed had one of the Dark Shadows things and brought the album out, and I played, and it was tremendously successful. And people really loved it. Now it was, kind of a caged audience, but it still was a lot of fun. And so that's really how it happened. But I played in Italy. I played in comparable to Johnny Carson shows and stuff like that. And but I don't ever take it seriously. I just like to play, and I love to play with other people.
I love waking up in the morning hearing him play. It's a great way to
Oh, that's so cool.
It's funny. Thank you. I thought I was waking her up. Now play in the garage.
As I wait for her to bring my coffee.
I was going to do a memorial for Lara, and one of the stories that I was going to say and I was hoping to do it this time, but they want to just do one song. But I was, when I got to Dark Shadows, I was playing guitar, and I was learning something called a three-finger picking. And I would sit there in the dressing room and just kind of, play around with it and all. And one day, when I first started the show, and I had this guitar, and she was leaning up against the door and wrapped in her dressing gown, and she said, my name is Lara Parker. And I said, well, and I'm Jim Storm. And we started talking. She said, that music sounds so good, so wonderful. I was playing a song called Red Light, Green Light. And I was learning it and trying to figure it out. And so that connection, whenever I pick it up, I always think of her, because she said, that's just really a beautiful sound. And she was incredibly supportive. From that day, whenever I had a guitar around, she invited me over to her home to meet her husband, who was a musician and kind of a man of many different trades, and Tom, the first husband.
Yeah.
And the song has kind of a special meaning, because since her passing, I just kind of thought, I've been thinking about it when I play it. She really was very supportive of what I did with the music.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And her son, I believe, went on to also become a musician, as I recall. Yeah. She was so cool. I had her on the podcast. I believe it was the last interview she ever did. I was on this podcast, and she was just so cool, like just the coolest, and just so really awesome and inquisitive and intelligent, and just
always. And she cared about what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Very rarely said, "Oh, and by the way, she was just always interested in what somebody else was saying," and that's what made her a good actress too, I think.
And to that point, I just wanted to add something. This last summer in July, we had the great opportunity and fun to do a photo shoot with Catherine and with Lamar in her home. Those photos are going to be out in the Daytime Gothic magazine from Stuart Manning, who is wonderful as well. But it was just such a wonderful afternoon, and just to what Jim just said, she's always wanting to know how everybody else was, and she was very. I got to spend a lot of time talking with her while Jim was shooting at Catherine, and she was very appreciative of all her fans and the support and love that they'd all given her. So I want everybody to know how much she really appreciated everybody.
She really loved it.
She really loved the fans, and made a really big deal to tell me how much she appreciated everybody. So, and that was the last time I got to see her. She was always kind. She's always inquisitive about Jim and me too.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. She's so cool. Yeah.
She was like one of the first people I met in Dark Shadows.
Yeah.
And it's always had in my heart. And she used to call me her BFF, which Laura Parker called her BFF. But she's just such a sweet. And her husband too, Jim Hawkins, just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful man.
How about John Carlin? Because he was, he was also a very beloved Dark Shadows cast member too.
What a great guy!
For hours on that one.
He's a great guy.
Anytime I mention his name to a fellow Dark Shadows cast member, they get that exact smile and they start chuckling. It's just
he was not to be believed. For some reason, we were shooting a scene, Johnny, me, and Jerry Lacey, and it was a conspiratorial scene. And it was just from the very first day we sat down at the table and we started laughing. And it was one of those things where you couldn't laugh in church. The more you couldn't laugh, the more you did. It was, and we had this director by the name of Leela Swift, who had a voice that shattered glass over the. She first started off like, okay, now could we be a little bit more serious? And we say, sure. And we'd start the scene, and there we went again. And pretty soon you heard that voice go, oh my God. It just was awful. And of course, the madder she got to laugh, the more we just went on. So we had to shoot it,
Yeah.
And John's looking off that way, Jerry's looking off that way, and I was down here looking down. And if I dared look up at Jerry, it was over. So the whole scene was played. We never looked at each other because we were fear of laughing. Yeah. So I don't even know how it played well. But that was my introduction to Carlin, and he's just, I could read a book about that guy. He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
We had a lot of fun with him too. A lot of good times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, great.
When he was incapacitated in wheelchair and stuff like that, and we were sitting in a diner, and out of the blue he said, God, Paul Newman's a shitty actor. What? He said, oh, he never did, and everything was based on whether they were good or bad actors,
Yeah.
I just laughed.
That's amazing.
It was a joy. He was just a joy.
And going back to what we're talking about, the Dark Shadows cast members are really family. That just reminded me that when Johnny was in the hospital, we were going in to see him. And as we were coming in to see him, David Selby was walking out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Who was preceded by Laura.
Oh.
None of us knew that we were going to be there. We just all we're all there. Everyone's up for each other, and it's been, really nice.
He was a treasure. He really was. And when he got the Emmy for the television show, you just
Cagney and Lacey, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He was so good in that, and Tyne Daly was so supportive of his whole career. She was with him the whole time, and he was a real treasure.
Yeah. And you mentioned Jerry Lacey. He's done some of Ansel Farage's films. The gravitas he has is just very compelling to watch, for sure.
He looks great. We saw Laura's Memorial. He looks great.
Oh, he's
doing really well.
No.
Yeah.
Mentally,
very handsome.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I haven't heard many people ask you about this. So, there's an actor on Dark Shadows who played the head of Judah Zachary. Michael McGuire was the head, and Keen Curtis was the voice of the warlock's head that possesses Gerard. Do you remember anything about either of those actors?
I knew Keen very well. I was surprised when he walked in and stuck his head through the. Yeah, I don't remember the other gentleman. I remember I was just enthralled that I was talking to Keen while he was in green light and stuff like that. But yeah, Keen and I had worked on Broadway with the APA for years, and we were very. I knew him very well, and.
Yeah.
But that's about all I can remember is that I was surprised to see him, show up, and we laughed about the whole thing all the way.
Yeah. I'm sure it was behind the scenes. It was funny, I'm sure, to have that, but I mean, it was a pretty horrifying image to have a decapitated head in a glass thing. That's Dark Shadows.
Yeah, but the technology of that time, I mean, the way they did it, the people, they broke records, they broke they really gave, a lot to the technology, and Dan's really responsible for it. He used to run around with a little Super 8 camera. And he'd walk into. He was very rarely was he at the studio. He didn't show up when Kate hit me with a bottle.
Yes, Kate Jackson. You had a lot of scenes with her. Yeah.
Yeah, she put me down with 8 stitches, and that was fun.
She talks. I think that she mentioned that recently too. She signed an autograph for a fan and with the two of you, and she wrote about it in the autograph. Yeah, so she knocked you out with a bottle, huh?
It was a comfort, man. They took me to the hospital emergency. Big 8 stitches in my head. She really did it. Yeah, it's fun.
Do you ever run into her at all?
I ran into her once. In fact, she said, one of the reasons I came here is because she wanted to see me and David and a lot of people. But it was a tribute for Dan.
Oh, the Dan Curtis event. Yeah, yep, I remember that. Yeah.
I was talking to her, and we were just about engaged in conversation when her manager pulled her away, saying they want to do some stuff with Dan. That's the last I ever saw her.
Okay.
It's too bad. I'd like to have said hello to her. She was a lady. Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, she started recently. She had not done like conventions and things like that. She just did a convention appearance. Last week, yeah. I think it was like the Hollywood autograph show or something. She was like her first kind of appearance. So
I wonder if she'll be there.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
That would be fun.
Yeah. I know you mentioned Dan Curtis. You did a lot after Dark Shadows ended too. Dan Curtis continued to cast you in several of his films, including Trilogy of Terror, a lot of the TV horror films that he did. Any thoughts on? Was it like, did Dan Curtis reach out to you and say, "Hey, Jim, I want you to do this"? Or
yeah, well, I had just gotten off the airplane, and I was staying at my mom's house in Santa Monica, and I picked up the phone, and Dan, God love him, but he was very intimidating.
I'm sure, yeah,
very intimidating guy, and I knew he liked me a lot, and we shot pool at his house, and he was a really good guy. And so I called, and I said, yeah, I'd like to talk to Dan Curtis. And the phone picks up. He says, "Where the are you?" So I said, "Get you down here." And so I said, "Oh, now, all right, I'm at the Playboy room, 19th floor." So I parked the car, went in there, and the door opens, and he's standing there, and he turns to Hoyt Bowers, who was casting at the time, very, very notable casting director. He said, "This kid could play anything. Get him an agent." He said, "Okay, I got 2 things for you. I got this one called Trilogy of Terror. You're going to do this, and here's the script, and go read it, and we'll give you the time when we'll start it." And then Bob had another one too. I forget what the show was. So I had 2 shows at the same day hired for both of them. But he was instrumental for getting me started in Hollywood. I mean, that's.
Was Night of Dark Shadows your first film role?
Yeah.
You made the cover of Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. Did you ever see that?
Yeah, I did.
Bloody Gerard on the cover of Famous, one of the.
Shot it. Yeah.
Oh, great. One of the only 4 Dark Shadows made the cover 4 times, and 3 of them were was Barnabas, but Gerard was solo on that 4th one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was because they had to shoot through glass. You know, they had to shoot it through glass, and then they had the bullets stop in plexiglass. And I'm thinking, oh dear God! And I'm looking at this thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was scary, but it turned out really well. It's a great shot. I love the photograph of it.
Yeah.
No, it was a pellet gun.
Yeah.
It shot a marble or something, but it's scary.
I'm sure it was. And they're, I know Darren Gross is, and Ansel too, are working on the, restoring the film. And it's, for years now, we've been hoping that Warner Brothers will pony up the money to kind of finish it off and release the director's cut of the film, because of course, James Aubrey at MGM ordered Dan Curtis to chop out so much of the film, which is so unfortunate. And everybody wants to see that full version of Night of Dark Shadows.
I would love to see it.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had a special relationship with him, and he was, I would go in and visit with him when he had his office in Paramount or over in some buildings the ABC had, and he was always gracious. He was always, what are you doing? What's happening? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you getting more? He was just a terrific guy. Terrific guy. I have great feelings for him. And his birthday is on the same day as mine.
Oh, is it? Yeah. Oh, cool. Do you ever see his daughters or?
No, I talked to her one time. I didn't see.
Yeah.
I talked to her on the phone about the situation. I wanted to see if it could be done.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't come to pass. But no, I knew them when they were kids, but that's.
No, well, I know Valerie, you commented once on a post that I was in that Dark Shadows collectors group that Jeff Kenny runs, and somebody posted some merchandise. It was like an Angelique model. I think it might have been my post with an Angelique model, and you commented there should be a more Gerard stuff, and I agree. There should be a Gerard model kit, or with the head of Judah Zachary with Gerard. I think that would be really cool. What do you think, Jim?
Fantastic. I think that would really be cool. That would really.
There's someone out there, hey, where are you, Dark Shadows man? Someone can do it, I'm sure.
Yeah, that would be very flattering and that would be a great honor. It really would.
Super cool. Yeah.
That'd be super cool. Let's put a call out to everyone.
Yes. More Gerard merchandise. I agree. I know there's a trading card. I have the the orange set of the trading cards, and I know Gerard's in that set for sure.
We were at John's house. You showed it on your show, but I just was like, "Are you kidding me?" It's
John Logan,
and the fact that he plays with it. I'll put it over here. I'll put it over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's angelic. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we're both super geeks, so we share pictures of our collections with each other. We're like, look what I got.
He's got his eye on that music box. I'm telling you right now, he's got his eye on it.
The Josette's music box. Yeah, that's tough to get, and that's the original one from 1970 is pretty expensive, but it's but they're out there. I do have one, but they reissued it. MPI reissued it in the 90s, and even that one is really pricey. There was somebody else I wanted to mention. You also had a lot of scenes with David Hennessy, and I remember an interview with him. He did an interview for 16 magazine, which who knows if those interviews, it's like, who knows how real those are. But he said, actually, I have it right here in this wonderful book that was done by the late, great Craig Hamrick called Barnabas and Company. And he did, write-ups on all of the Dark Shadows cast members and their histories and all of that. And he says, David Hennessy described James Storm as an extraordinarily talented young man, an excellent mime, and a guy who has a pixie sense of humor. Generally, Jim's shy streak precludes him from being photographed or giving interviews. So I appreciate you giving this interview because, according to David Hennessy, your shy streak precludes you from doing it.
It's funny because I didn't want to do this, not this one, but the interview when I first got to the show. The 16 magazine called, the editor said, "Would you do it?" And I said, "No." And finally, Bob, Dan's assistant, said, "Please, just do it. Come on." So I said, "Okay." Well, I went into 16 office, and she met me there, and we sat down, and she was just fantastic. She was just so knowledgeable about it. And
Gloria Stavers.
Yeah, a massive member of Bob Dylan. I was a freak for Bob Dylan.
Oh, cool.
And she said, "Oh, okay." And she hands me a copy of his Ode to Woody Guthrie and signed it. So she hands me that. And then she said, "Well, at that point, I loved country music, and Hank Williams was my favorite." And so I got a call from her. She said, "Would you come over to the office real quickly?" And I said, "Sure." So I walked over there, and she had handed me a stack of records because her father was a disc jockey of all of these Hank Williams records.
Oh, cool! Wow.
And I wore them out. I still have. They're just and that was it was just, she was really remarkable, and I was so, and from that day on I said, I'm going to start behaving myself. But to go back to David, I used to terrify him at he was just a kid, but incredibly bright guy, and he was going to buy into a camera store at one point. He was very interested, and of course I was glued to the camera, so we would have little conversations about it, but the age difference and everything, I never paid much attention to it. And when we did this show, and he was moving down to South America or something, he was going down there. Anyway, I sent him a note saying, did you ever pursue your photography? Did you ever go, because you were really into it when I knew you? How old was he? Was it 12, 13 years old?
I think when you were on, he was 13. I think at that point, 13 going on 14 at that point.
Yeah, but I never heard back from him, so I don't know what, but
yeah.
I just remember him as being a very kind of precocious kind of individual, but charming, and very conscientious, worked really hard. He was a very, very, he was, and apparently he had quite a resume up until, he was really, Broadway and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it was cool that he joined for that Dark Shadows Christmas Carol, which was so cool. I mean, because I'd always read Dan Curtis wanted to do like a TV special with the Dark Shadows cast for Christmas and do a Christmas Carol, and it never happened. So finally it did. Through the miracle of Zoom, we're all able to reunite to do that, and that was really cool. Any thoughts on that?
Turned out really well. It was really fun. But that's where I've met. I hadn't seen him since Dark Shadows, and then at the Christmas thing he was there. So
that was great.
Anything to him.
So much fun to see that and all come together. Grayson Hall. Any thoughts on her?
Yeah. Oh.
It was so fun to see Alexandria on there. I never met her.
Alexandra Moltke. Isles. Yeah, she did that too. And she was great. She was fantastic. Yeah.
That was Mitch Ryan's last.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
One day, what are you doing? She had a cigarette. So she said, you have your truck? I said, "Yeah, it's part of it." Come on. Take me up to there's a market, open air market up in Harlem. And I'm thinking, oh, terrific. That's what I want to do. So I took her up to this open air market, and she just, she talks to everybody. She just went right through it, got an arm, bags of groceries and stuff like that, threw them in the truck, took them, went back down there. And she just went about her business. But what she really loved to do is I ran into her when the 3-card monies were hopping around, right? And she would lose, right? And I said, what are you doing? I mean, this is, she's, oh, it's so much fun. I don't care if I lose. It's so much fun to watch them do this. You should watch it. It's really interesting. And so she'd go right back and put her $10 down and lose it, put it on. She just went right through it. But she was great. She and her husband, Sam, I can't say enough about. What a literary mind. The mind in general, but he was just a wonderful guy. I really liked him a lot.
Did you have much interaction with him or Gordon Russell while they were writing the show?
Yeah, Gordon, I did. I felt the same way. Gordon was he had left I was on the show for a while and then he left, so I didn't get to know him that well. But I went to a party at his house. And he loved to have a party. He loved to have, people over and everything. And he was one of these guys, both of them were one of these guys who kind of, it was a job to write this show. It wasn't something that they were really, they had higher expectations in their career. And both of them are certainly qualified to write great stuff. And like I said, I didn't know Gordon that well, but he was always interesting. He always wanted to know what you were doing, and he was terrific. And I think he was married 30 times or something. He was just going. And
Gordon Russell, I did not know that.
Oh, he was just wild. And Sam was just, he was very, very collected and adored Grayson and their son. He was just a sweet man. And I almost had a job with him writing One Life to Live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I sent him a thing saying, and he read it and he said, Jesus, this is wonderful. And he said, we're going to have lunch with the other writers. And so we sat down and they all agreed that it seemed to be, I knew what I was doing. They said, what we would do is have you hire on and you just kind of, learn it from the bottom steps as far as structure and all that stuff. But he said, you've got to, they were very complimentary. And then they presented it to the producer. And he turned it down. He said, "No, I can't have him," because my brother was on the show, and they thought of nepotism was bullshit. But that's he didn't go for it. So, but Sam was very complimentary about it. So it would have been fun.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't know you were a writer as well. So, geez,
no,
multi-talented.
That was out of desperation, I'm not a writer.
Well, Sam, I've read that Sam could be. He was very honest and critical. If he was very direct about people's writing. So if he gave you that compliment, he 100% was.
Very, very, you just said we have to talk about it. He was really he wanted me on the show, because I would have followed him right to the end and really.
Before we sign off, I want to ask you both if you have anything exciting coming up. Jim, you've been working on a film or?
Yeah, I just finished a film called Jinx, and it's a young actor, writer, producer, and his dad and I are good friends, and it was most enjoyable, to watch these people do their jobs. They were just incredible, and they step over the bounds and do other people's jobs to help them out. And the cinematographer was really, he has some meat under his skin, so he's really good. It was a fun show. It's a day's work, and it was really wonderful. I really enjoyed it.
Jinx. I'll keep an eye out for that one for folks. If you see on Jinx,
it's going to be around. I think you'll enjoy it. I think it's but we'll see.
He also did a one-day shoot last year on a vampire show called The Lair.
Oh, The Lair. Oh, back to the world of vampires here, huh? The Lair.
Yeah, that was it. That was a good show. That was fun to do. I'm really focusing on photography. When a offer comes, or that's fine. But right now, both would like to, do stuff. And
Yeah.
there's a whole other thing I'm working on in photography that is really exciting, and it's going to be. If we had more time, I would get into it, but it's.
Oh, please feel free to if you like. I mean,
I just there's a French artist. His name is Jacques Millegret, and I saw a book of his, and I was very curious about it. And I just started.
oh, there it is. Yeah. Cool.
After World War II, went through the streets of Paris, tore off signs and all of this stuff, and information booths. He would take things up. He'd go back and he started playing around with that, getting shapes and this rhythmic type of collages. Well, he's unfortunately, he was 93 when he passed away a couple of years ago, but his work is world famous, and I really became enthralled with it and this whole. So I said, well, how do you do that with camera? Because he was also a photographer. And I said, so I go around to LA now, taking those signs off the walls, and the garage is filled with all sorts.
Oh,
I have the
great
photographs, and I cut them up, and it's I don't know where it's going to go, but it certainly beats shooting sunsets.
Oh, but they're really interesting.
It's cool.
Yeah,
more to come on that.
I want to do. Yeah, there's some. It's really fun, and I'm going to do one. They could be political. There will be, but also there are sociological things, comments about our society, and things of thought that I think it's because I don't know. It's just, in fact, I was telling John Logan, I'm looking for something to do with photography that just is beyond. Snapping portraits or, doing, although there's nothing, I still love doing that, but there's something I wanted to say something,
Sure.
something. I'm not a photojournalist and going into, we went to Standing Rock, and that was pretty insane. But, I'm not a street photographer at all. I don't have that. So you're looking for something to say something, so that's, I think this might be kind of fun to, explore. So that's the latest thing in the photography that I'm doing. I like to do about 12 before I put them up for a show. I'd really like to have a scene to just see if I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
And Valerie, how about you?
Well, I think this is a good time to tell everyone thank you who has come on to the website. We really appreciate everyone who's come on and signed up for the newsletter and supported our photography and put it in their homes like you have.
Oh, they're beautiful.
It means a lot to us. We try to write little notes to people to tell them how much we appreciate it. And also want to thank everybody on Jim's fan club on Facebook, James Storm official fan group. We love going on there and seeing the people are so much fun and just make wonderful contributions and things. And hopefully we get to meet a bunch of people during Remembrance Weekend so we can say hello and take photos with them and kind of catch up and know more about their lives, because other people's lives are very important to us. We want to hear what other people are doing and stuff like that.
Danielle, where are you from? Where are you now?
I'm in Massachusetts. So I grew up here, and I lived for a couple of years in San Francisco, which is where I met my late husband, was in San Francisco, and it was really expensive out there, even though I loved it. But so I convinced him to move to Massachusetts with me. And I remember the first winter, he's like, "Baby, for my birthday this year, I want a snowblower." Like, all right, we're getting a snowblower.
What were you doing in San Francisco?
I was actually studying theater at San Francisco State University, and I was taking classes there, and I was doing classes at San Francisco Comedy College too with Curtis Matthews, and doing stand-up classes, and also doing improv classes with Melanie Borba from BATS, Bay Area Theater Sports. So I've always been a big fan of improv, especially improv comedy.
Did you ever come across ACT at all?
Yes, yeah, oh yeah, sure, yeah.
That was a big, yeah.
I never did anything with them, but I do. Right, I mean,
yeah. That's a landmark. That's a landmark
for sure. Yeah. But yeah, it was cool. I got to get back to San Francisco. In fact, I thought about going up there while I was in Burbank for after Remembrance, but I don't think I'm gonna have the time to shoot up to San Francisco. But I got to get back out there at some point because it's a cool place.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, I was actually curious to know how you got started doing your podcast.
Oh, the podcast. Oh my goodness. Well,
we want to know more about you.
oh gosh. This is where everyone turns off the episode. Like,
no, but I just want to say before I think what you're doing is extraordinary.
It's really wonderful.
It's really wonderful. You know, we're going to go back and listen to all the past ones and stuff because we had so much fun listening to you and John Logan's interview, and you're just so bright and so wonderful, and we just really enjoyed it and really appreciate that you're doing this for fans. It's just amazing.
Thank you. I love Dark Shadows. That's why I started doing it, because it was during COVID. It was 2021, and I had rewatched Dark Shadows. I watched because what a perfect show to watch during the pandemic. It's like I can't go anywhere, and there's a lot of Dark Shadows to rewatch. And I'd watched it. That might have, I don't remember how many times. Dark Shadows since childhood. I mean, Dark Shadows has been a mainstay in my life and my family too, because my uncle came to America in the 60s. He discovered Dark Shadows as a kid, and he became obsessed with it. And when I came around in the early 70s, he immediately started telling me about Dark Shadows, and he gave me his gum cards and Famous Monsters magazines. And so I grew up surrounded by Dark Shadows and being a fan of it. We watched it in syndication in the 80s. And I got the VHS tapes when they came out from MPI. So during the pandemic, I said, I'm going to rewatch Dark Shadows. It had been a little while since I'd watched the whole series through. So I watched it, and I said, I want to do a Dark Shadows podcast. And I had done a local TV show as Penny Dreadful, hosting old horror movies on TV for 10 years. I did that with my husband. So I said, well, I'll use the Penny Dreadful name, but I'll host this Dark Shadows podcast. And I started inviting other fans on through Zoom to talk about the storylines and the characters, and then cast members such as yourself started coming on to the show as well. And Mary O'Leary, who did the Jonathan Frid documentary, Ansel Faraj, who just done many films with the Dark Shadows cast. And it's just been a lot of fun. I've been having just such a blast doing this, and I'm honored that you would both come on to the podcast to chat with me.
Looking forward to it. Sorry for the delay, but we've been really looking forward to talking with you. That's why I called you early. I was already excited about talking. Maybe we should wait. Yeah.
Yeah, you run a great show.
Well, thank you.
You should come to Idlewild and stay with us sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And like if you come out to Massachusetts, I know Valerie, you were out.
What?
I know Valerie was out here when you did your residency, and you were a doctor. You know, you were out here for quite a while, so you know.
Yeah.
So we definitely have to meet up sometime.
I look forward to seeing you in person and the Remembrance and
seeing everybody, everyone that can come. We're looking forward to seeing.
And let's not have it end there. Let's to continue on. To talk and meet.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Speaking of which, for people who can't come, anytime anybody wants to ask a question or Jim or something, they can always contact us through the website too. Come right to us, and we'll be happy. We're just people like everybody else. So
yeah, jimstormphotography.com. I will put a link to it in the show notes, and for the YouTube, I'll also put it up on the screen, jimstormphotography.com, and also the Facebook page as well, the James Storm Fan Club on Facebook. I'll put a link to that.
It would help with, it's wonderful. It's nice to have feedback from people.
And we love talking to people and hearing about it. We've actually made a lot of friends through people contacting through the website. So we know about their families. We've called people. It's been a lot of fun.
It's a beautiful website with beautiful photographs and very easy to order the prints. I went on there and I looked through, and I decided on those two, or I want to get those two, and they came really quick and with beautiful. Also, you mentioned sending a personal note, like, look at this. I mean, I'm going to show this in the YouTube version, like really beautiful card, and look at this handwriting. My goodness, you have beautiful penmanship. I wish I could write like that.
Yeah. You could read the whole thing until you get to mine. The handwriting.
Oh, there it's right.
It's deplorable.
Maybe because I was just a doctor once and he played one on TV 3 times.
Oh, God.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much again to both of you
That's
for
right.
joining me. It's been an
Thank you
absolute pleasure
much.
chatting with
We
you.
enjoyed it enormously.
Yeah, thank you
Oh,
so
We
much.
look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you
Hang out
both
with the festival.
Yeah.
And remember,
Yeah.
for sure.
care.
And hey, in 2 years, it's going to be the 60th anniversary of Dark Shadows. Can you believe it? So they got to do something for that, I think.
Something, yeah. 2 years?
Yeah,
Wow.
2 years. Jim Pearson, are you listening?
we'll text him.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Blast. He'll be hearing about it, sure.
Yeah, I'm
Anyway,
sure.
thank you so much.
All right.
It was
Thank you.
lovely time. Thank you, Jen.
Thank
Thank
you.
Terror at Collinwood is a Penny Dreadful production.